you
and I'll
and
check.
myself on screen. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm just checking
Perfect.
it's sharing all right. Okay, so we're all ready to go now. So, thanks everyone who's joined in today to watch us. Today I have Hannah Tovey with us. So, Hannah is from South Wales and she grew up in Hong Kong. She graduated from the Faber Academy in 2018 and finished her debut novel, The Education of Ivy Edwards. Hannah lives in East London where she misses, is it Linalley Beach?
Yeah. Honestly, it's very hard to
Oh,
pronounce. The
okay. So
fact
it's
that you
with a
tried that,
Welsh.
Jackie, is
Yeah, I don't
fantastic.
think I'll
Yeah.
be able to pronounce that very well. Can you say that again for us?
Clan Llanelli. It's
Okay,
even hard for me to say it. So,
thanks. And her second novel is This It, which comes out in July. So thanks so much for joining us, Hannah. Just want to tell everyone that I've just read The Education of Ivy Edwards and really, really loved it. It's like a really light-hearted read and good to take you away from current worries and things like that in your life.
yeah, she Ivy Edwards. I like to describe it as a bit of a hot mess.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of parts of, oh gosh, I can't believe she just said that, and a lot of cringe moments. But yes, if I can provide some escapism and joy in these weird times, then that's great.
Yeah,
That's
and I
fab.
think it makes you feel that your life isn't quite so bad when you read about what's
No,
happening with
she
her.
absolutely puts things into perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you think that things are unraveling for you, then you should read The Education of Ivy Edwards
Mm,
because it really unravels for her. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So thanks so much for joining us. Um, so could you, I'd like to talk to you probably about both your books, really, because I
Yeah.
read The Education of Ivy Edwards, but I'd like to know more about your new book coming out soon as well. Could you tell me, in your debut novel, how much of things you've experienced in your life or maybe heard from your friends' lives are actually in that book?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I start, Jack, I just want to say I have a stammer, and if my breath is off kilter, I might just take a pause and restart. You probably won't even notice it, but it's just helpful for me to say it.
Yeah,
So yeah, sorry,
thanks.
the question. Um, I had the idea of Ivy Edwards, although I didn't realize at the time, obviously, that was her. But I started writing about this woman in her early 30s about 10 years ago. So I was about 24 years old. I knew I wanted to write about Welsh characters because I wasn't seeing any authentic Welsh characters in literature
Mm,
or TV or film. Um, I knew I wanted to explore the notion of identity and of home. I'm from South Wales. I moved to Hong Kong when I was 9. I now live in um, I now live in London, and this notion of home and where you identify home as has always really interested me.
mm,
Um, and I explore that in the book quite a lot. But the story really crystallized to me in my head when just before my 30th, I I was engaged. I called off the engagement.
oh,
I went quickly into a new relationship that ended pretty spectacularly
mm,
badly, and I had this aha moment of I need to write about heartache. I need to write about loss. I need to
mm,
write about what happens when the rug is pulled out from under you and you unravel spectacularly before everyone's eyes. It really became clear to me then that I had to explore this.
mm,
And weirdly, I've always been drawn to people on the sort of emotional edge, maybe because I am in my own life, I don't know, but I'm always interested in characters who are really flawed and complex and messy, because I find a lot of humor in that. I find a lot of humor in sort of pain and yeah, and I think it's really important to show that in an authentic way. So there's a lot of me in her, absolutely. But she's not. I can't say I agree with lots of the things that she does. She's much more brazen than me. She's very self-sabotaging. She spirals out of control, and you can't bring her back. And I'm not like that, thankfully. But I think any writer that says to you that they aren't in their work is probably lying to you. I think to write authentically, you have to be vulnerable and put a lot of yourself on the page, and I hope that's why people connect with Ivy, because she is a real, very flawed person. But that is real life. We are messy and flawed, and that's what makes us wonderful.
Yeah. And I think she probably has little bits of her that lots of people can relate to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I try to draw from real life constantly. I get a heck of a lot of inspiration from those around me, whether it be friends or family or people I see on the street. I'm constantly people watching. I'm constantly looking at how people are interacting with each other. Are they at the middle of a tense argument? Are they about to have an argument? What is she wearing? What kind of body language is she giving off? That's, I'm forever people watching. So hopefully, that's what makes it relatable, because a lot of it is drawn from real life.
And can you tell us, have you always wanted to be a writer?
I've always written. I began writing plays when I was in secondary school, but I really always wanted to. I always wanted to be an actor. That was the dream for me. But because of my stammer, it was complicated. On stage, I would never stammer. I've never stammered at all.
Okay.
When I was another character, which is funny, strange in itself. It's saying you don't stammer when you sing. So
yeah, I remember seeing some great singers who stammer like all the time, but then when they sing beautifully. It's quite amazing that happens, isn't it?
It's so strange, Jackie. And yeah, so I've never stammered on stage or when I sang, but off stage, the audition process, I applied for drama schools. I would recoil. I would be so anxious when the monologue turned off and the character turned off, and then I had to be me and be interviewed. I fell to pieces. I just absolutely hated it. But you don't stammer when you write, which is wonderful. Yeah. And so I started when I told myself I couldn't go through with any more rounds of drama school trials. I just I turned to writing. I wrote constantly, and I did that for a good. This is my early 20s, so I did that for a few years. But then, what really sort of solidified it for me was Faber Academy. Faber Academy is a writing school that is attached to the publishing house called Faber and Faber. It's in London. It's really prestigious. They do workshops. They do 6-month courses, and it's all to sort of propel you into this writing journey. And I did a workshop with them when I was 30, and I came out of the workshop and I thought, I have to make a serious. I want to make a real sort of serious go with writing. That I came out of the workshop. It was on a Saturday morning. I felt so energized when I came out, and I thought I have to make this work. And I had all these stories, but yeah, that really cemented that in my head. And I completed the workshop. Then I did the 6-month writing a novel course, and yeah, that's where I wrote The Education of Ivy Edwards.
And how hard or easy was it to get that first book published?
I mean, how much time do you have, Jackie? It was very, very hard. It was. Right, let's go back a bit. So I finished the 6-month writing a novel course in March 2018. And they do a day in June where all your classmates, so we were 15 in a class, there were four classes. You come together and you read 2 minutes from your work, and you read in front of agents and Faber Academy staff. And on the back of that, so I read a piece from the start, and on the back of that, I had 2 agents email me and wanted to see more of the work. So I sent it to them. I then sent it to 4 other agents, and I got accepted for 2 agencies, and I went with one, and I thought, great, this has been easy. The next stage is going to be quick and simple, and I'll be signed up with a publisher straight away. That's not what happened at all. So my agent sent out the manuscript in August 2018. By October, I'd had 10 rejections, and the rejections were, a few of them were really, really detailed and constructive, which was super helpful. And I asked my agent at the time, should we take a pause on sending out to more publishers, and should I rework the manuscript based on that feedback? She said, no, plow on. So I plowed on. 3 months later, those 10 rejections had turned into 23 rejections.
Wow.
It was really, it was like a punch to the gut. It was because you think that when you get an agent, the next part's really easy. That'll come super quick. And that was a fantasy that I absolutely shouldn't have held up as this reality, because that's not the reality at all. And what was really painful about it was that I didn't realize that for every publishing house that there is, so Ivy, this one, The Education of Ivy Edwards, falls into commercial women's fiction.
Yeah.
And you have somebody who represents that genre per publishing house. Once they've read it and they've said no, you can't go to other people within that publishing house. That house is now closed. And there are only a finite number of houses, which I didn't realize. I sort of thought, well, if one editor says no, surely I can send it to another editor from the same house. And it was like, well, no, they're the ones who deal with your genre. So 23 was a lot of publishing houses.
You must have been getting close to none left.
Absolutely. And I said to my agent, I said, I can't keep on submitting. Like, it's soul destroying. I can't deal with this level of rejection. It's like really, really hard. And I said, just stop sending it out. I had 2 months away from the manuscript. I didn't look at it. I didn't read anything. And then 2 months later, I came back to it with fresh eyes, and I printed out every single piece of feedback that I'd been sent, and I just reworked it. not many plot points changed, but it was more character feedback actually, which was interesting. And they sometimes felt that she went too towards, the edge, and we had to pull her back, and we had to create more humor in her heartache. And so I basically reworked the manuscript for a couple of months, and then we sent it out, and I got an offer the first month, and then I said, I want to keep waiting. These people take months to come back to you, which I didn't realize either. It's it's a long waiting game. So I had an offer, and then a month later I had Little Brown came and said they wanted to sign me up for a 2-book contract. So that was the absolute dream. That was 10 months after I'd signed with my agent, and 23 rejections in that time. It took a lot of resilience, a lot of, I think I almost said, I can't do this anymore. But it's always when you're at that point that actually you should take a step back, reassess, take some stock. And I came back to it with fresh eyes, and I knew exactly what I had to do. But if I had just kept on plowing through, I don't think I'd be where I am now.
And when you wrote or changed it a bit, were you able to then send it back to some of the same publishers, or you still had to?
Yes. Well, that's really interesting. So I was told that you can't, but when I read some of the feedback, some of the editors really, really liked it, but had made a couple of comments and said, if you tried that, maybe we could have a look at it again. And so I said to my agent at the time, I said, can we please send it back out? And she was reticent. And I thought, no, there are a couple of people there who I would like to send it out to. So she did. One of them came back positively, but I went with Little Brown then. So it was a long journey. It was a challenge, a massive challenge.
And how did you, getting rejection after rejection, how did you keep going and not want to just give up and say enough's enough?
I drank a lot of wine. That's probably one thing I did to get through it. I think I have people around me who are very, very supportive. My partner, my mum, particularly, who just said, take a breath and reset and, return to it with fresh eyes. But when you're in it and people just saying, no, it's so hard to see the wood through the trees, and so hard to be positive, and so hard to pick yourself up again. And I think if I hadn't have had a few really close people around me who really believed in me, and also the support of my Faber classmates who, they read my work, we critique each other's work, we send each other our stories constantly. If I hadn't had them as well saying, this could be something, you have to keep at it. If I didn't have that, I would find, there would have been a huge struggle. Sounds
like you got some great support.
Yeah, absolutely. Massively.
So we've got a few people watching, which is great, and I've got some questions coming through. So anyone else as well, if you've got any questions for Hannah, please type them in comments. Mary's wondering, what inspires you to write?
Hi, Mary. Lovely question. Thank you. What inspires me to write, Mary? I get a lot of inspiration from the people around me. I mentioned earlier that I'm people watching constantly. I have a notebook that I take with me everywhere. I write on my phone. I'm forever listening into conversations on the tube, anywhere I travel. And I get, I do get real inspiration from people. I think that's why I found lockdown so hard. I live with my partner in a one-bedroom flat.
Yeah.
As
And
much
you
as I
haven't
love
got that.
him, just seeing him every day is not that inspiring. Don't tell him I said that, but it's not. It's, you know, I find a lot of creativity, inspiration, and joy from just being around people. And I think writing book 2 is this it. I was editing that just as lockdown started, and I found that really, really hard. Not being able to go outside. I mean, here, the first lockdown, we were only allowed to exercise outside for half an hour. I think this same as you, Jackie, for the first one, wasn't it? That is brutal.
Yeah.
Like, how can I, you know, I'm in a small one-bed flat. How can I? It's so hard to derive inspiration from your own four walls. But I mean, yeah, I read tons. I'm a constant reader, and often I find that when I'm writing, I get anxious that I'm perhaps stealing like snippets of other people's stories. But I actually, as I'm writing more, I just think it makes me a better writer. Yeah, the more I read, absolutely, the more inspired I am.
Yeah. And Tony says she loves the wine as an inspiration, and it's lovely to hear too about your family support.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
Nalima has an interesting question. She said, did you like the updated version of your book?
Did I like the... do you mean me, as in when I rewrote it?
Yeah, I think that's what she means.
You know what? That's a really interesting question, Nalima, because when you write, this might sound to when you write, you have to think that you're writing the greatest novel of all time. Because if you don't believe in it, then nobody else will. Like most manuscripts get put in a drawer, and you know, nobody ever reads them. So for you to send it out, you've got to really believe that it could be something. And when somebody tells you it's not as great as you thought it was going to be, obviously that's crushing. But it took me a while. I think that's why when I was rewriting it took me a good 2-3 months. It wasn't rewriting the whole thing, but I think that's what took me a long time, was accepting people's feedback on characters who I created, some of them for years, and then these people saying, perhaps you need to look at that or add a bit of that, and it's like, well, you don't know Ivy, you don't know her mother, you don't know any of that. But I have to listen to them because, you know, this is my first foray into novels, and if I don't listen to the professionals, I think that would be quite short-sighted of me. It was not easy to listen to them. I think it's important to say that, but I think you have to either way. Yeah, absolutely.
And Mary's wondering if you have a set time you write during your day.
Yeah, so the author Stephen King, I read his memoir, and he was saying that he writes 1,000 words every day, and he might start in the morning or at night or whenever, but when he hits 1,000 words, he stops. And I found that really, really helpful, because when I first started writing Ivy Edwards, I was working full-time. I'm now working part-time, but I was working full-time, and I would write on the tube on my phone. I would write on the tube coming home. I would write at lunchtime. And I found that really hard because I could never fully get into a scene because I was always stopping and starting, and I found that a real challenge. So when I read Stephen King's memoir and he said that, I thought, right, okay, if I structure this a bit more, if I wake up early, and I did 500 words before I go to work and 500 words after work. That's achievable. 1,000 words sounds quite a lot, and that can be quite scary. Oh, today I have to write 1,000 words. But if 500, you could, if you put your phone to one side and, you know, turn off the TV, you can do 500 words, 45 minutes, half an hour, if you really work hard. So that's what I try to do now. I try to really stick to that. 500 in the morning, 500 in the evening. Do I always do it? No, I'm often crap at it, to be quite honest. But the intention is there, and intentions are important.
Yeah. And Mary's wondering what genres you like to read. And I'm also wondering if there might be anything you've read lately that you'd like to recommend to us.
Yes, I've got some here. So this is Exciting Times. Okay. It's by an author. Her name is, I can never say her name properly. Hold on, let me start again. I'm going to start that again. Nisha, I think that's how I say it. Nisha is an Irish name.
Okay.
The novel is called Exciting Times, and Exciting Times is about a girl called Ava. She's 22. She's from Ireland. She moves to Hong Kong to be an English teacher. And because I lived in Hong Kong, I found this a fascinating take on Hong Kong society and the grotesque wealth that's often associated with Hong Kong. It's a really, really interesting story. It's incredibly sharp. I would say this was my favorite book of last year. I think the writing is exquisite. She's also 22, which is crazy. And I think it's been up for every single prize.
I haven't heard of that one before, so
it's really good.
Adding it to my list.
Do it. Bernadine Evaristo. This book, Girl, Women, Other. This book is about the lives of 12 women and kind of their journeys of discovery and womanhood. And it's the 12 stories are connected in really beautiful, fascinating, very sort of interesting. I've never read anything like this. It was a real unique take on what it's like as well to be a person of colour in the UK, and I'm really interested in those stories and how these women's lives connect together was really, really fascinating. So I would recommend this. And what else have I read? There's a book called The Couple. So The Couple is by an author called Helly Acton. She actually lived in Australia. And The Couple is a really smart, funny take on, it flips sort of relationships on its head. So instead of the norm in society being that you find a partner, the norm in The Couple is to be single, and people who are in relationships are treated with a lot of sort of what are you doing in a relationship? It's a very smart take on society's views on relationships and the pressure it puts on people to couple up and what that means. And it's really, really funny. So yeah, I'd recommend that as well.
Yeah, thanks for those recommendations. I'd like to know more about your book that's coming out in July. Is this it? Are you able to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So Is This It is Ivy Edwards Part 2. However, you don't have to have read Ivy Edwards Part
Okay.
1 to read this. This works
So
on its own.
Ivy's the main character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ivy Edwards is the main character. And it's about big dreams and big love and refusing to settle for a half-lived life. Bless you, Jackie.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Yes, so yes, it's about big dreams, big love, and refusing to settle for a half-lived life. At the start of the novel, Ivy feels like she wants that she deserves and needs more in her life. She wants to be a better Ivy. She wants a better job. She wants a better life. She wants more for herself. And so she makes a phone call that then propels her to the next chapter of her life. And it is a comedy, but also deals with themes of loneliness and the pressure society puts on women to be everything at a certain age. So, you know, Ivy's 31 in the first novel, and she's 32 year in this one, and she doesn't have it all together, but she's really trying her hardest to. And I think I wanted to highlight these sort of pressures that society places on women to have the perfect career, the perfect marriage, the perfect life, and how toxic that can be. Yes. It'll make you laugh.
Yeah, that sounds good as well. And seeing as I have read The Education of Ivy Edwards, sounds like I'll have to give that one a read as well.
Yes, you will, Jackie.
I missed what you said. How much later is that written from The Education of? How many years later?
It is 5 months later.
Oh, just 5 months. Okay.
5 months later. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And Nalima's wondering, was it like, in your books, do you incorporate any of your experiences of growing up in Hong Kong?
That's a really interesting question. You know what? I've drawn from the people I met in Hong Kong. I've drawn from a lot of the characters, like a lot of my school teachers, a lot of that are in, particularly this one. There's a lot of them, and there's a lot of sort of the diversity of the people who I met, their humour, also their frankness. But I'd love to write about, I think that's why I was drawn to this one so much, was it's characterised in Hong Kong, and I'd love to write about Hong Kong. I miss it a lot. I haven't been back for 4 years, so I'd love to explore that.
And are you writing something at the moment?
Yes, so I have an outline for my third novel. An outline is about 6 pages where you do quite a descriptive, quite a descriptive plot outline. So I've done that, but until my second novel comes out, I'm having a break from starting it, because I started it and then I thought, actually, I'm just going to focus on this coming out, and then I will go into it full throttle after July. So come August, I'll be doing my 1,000 words every day. And you can hold me to that.
And does Ivy feature in your next?
No, I'm parked Ivy. Maybe I'll come back to her, but I've parked her for now.
Yeah. And Nalima's wondering if you might venture into writing any other genres.
Yeah, you know what? I love historical fiction. Historical
Mm,
fiction really inspires me. And I'd love to write in Dickensian uh, London, where it's all grimy and
mm,
grotty, and people are roaming the streets, and that sort of industrial feel to it. I'd love to write about that. I think I need to be a bit braver if I was to start that, but if I
mm.
was to write anything other than women's fiction, it would be historical fiction.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
a lot of research and that would be involved in that. Yeah.
So much research,
Mm,
exactly. So much research. Yeah.
mm, mm. So I'm wondering if there was much research you had to do for the two novels you've already written.
For Ivy Edwards, I wouldn't, I mean, research is me just watching and, you know, examining and listening to those around me. But for Is This It? Ivy wants to train to be a teacher, and there's so many routes into teaching that I actually found that whole process quite complex.
Mm,
You can go back to university, you can do a sponsored course, you can do a paid for course, you can get funding for various um, forms of teaching, whether that be the sciences and maths. So I did a lot of research around that, and I've got a couple of friends who went into primary school teaching in their early 30s. So I spoke to them a lot. I spoke to an old teacher of mine. Just to kind of to figure out, is it related? Is it realistic?
mm,
And also from the perspective of the children in the classroom, I don't have any 4-year-old children to look at. So
mm.
I had to do a lot of research there for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, thanks. I'm wondering what you think yourself makes a good story.
That's a great question. What do I think makes a good story? If I think of what I'm drawn to, the stories I'm drawn to, I kind of want to see real life drawn out on the page. I want to see characters who I relate to. I don't like anything that kind of sugarcoats reality. I want to see complex characters who are fully formed, who have real problems, and tackle those problems head on, and tackle those problems with humor, because that's what's real life. Obviously, any writers here, their part of their role is to entertain, so events are heightened for dramatic effect. But I want to relate to what's on the page. So for me, whether that's historical fiction or women's fiction, for me it's having those really fully formed characters who you can see perhaps a little piece of you in them, maybe, or something in them sparks something in you. I think that makes a great story.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Yeah. Nalima's got an interesting question.
Yes, Nalima again.
She's wondering if you've read any books from Australian authors.
You know what? I have not. So if you could recommend any, please do. What should I be reading from Australian authors?
Well,
what's your favorite?
if you want to read similar to what you've written, some great...
No.
No?
Because I think I need to stop. I think I need to broaden what I'm reading. So
What
if there's
about
anything else,
mystery thriller writers?
yes, love, 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 love. Yes.
So Jane Harper,
Okay, Jane Harper. Okay, I'll write this down.
Christian White.
Okay, great. Jane Harper, Christine White, fab, excellent.
Yeah.
And they're Australian authors.
Yeah, they're both Australian
Perfect.
authors. I'm
Fantastic.
sure there's lots of other great ones. Michael Rowbotham's another one.
Okay, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So thanks so much for joining us. Would you like to tell people how they can keep in touch with you?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram. I'm Hannah Claire Tovey. Claire is spelled without an I, so Clare. On Twitter, I'm Hannah C. Tovey. I'm a bit crap at Twitter, so if you want to reach me, I would do so via Instagram. Yeah, Hannah Claire Tovey.
Okay, thanks for that. And you try and respond to people. You have time to respond to people that reach out to you.
I love that. Yeah, definitely.
That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I welcome it with open arms, for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for chatting to me today. And
thanks, Jackie.
It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks to everyone who joined in. We had some really great questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care.